Welcome, everybody, to Progressive Democrats of America's Town Hall. Lost track of the dates a little bit, folks, for Sunday, May 18th, 2025. And we have a very special guest. It's both an opportunity for us to honor our guest's father and to hear all about her campaign as a progressive candidate to replace one of the great progressive champions of our time, Raul Grijalva, in Congress. And I'll say a little bit more about Representative Grijalva in a few minutes. I'm Al Leminsky, Executive Director of Progressive Democrats of America, and I am overcoming only the second time I've knowingly had COVID. And I was on a road trip to Wisconsin where I joined you last week from an event. And through Monday, I thought I had nothing more than maybe a bout of allergies. I had a lot of energy, but I was having some respiratory problems. By Tuesday, I knew I had a bad head cold, and I didn't think it was COVID at all. And so, I took some over-the-counter cold medicine, expected to go have meetings on Wednesday, and I did the right thing. I tested for COVID, and there you go, had COVID. And that made sense then after that. And so I called up almost everybody I was in close contact with in the previous days and let them know that they should get some extra rest and so on. And I hadn't been getting extra rest. I've been running a little too much in the fast lane the past few weeks. A lot of travel, and certainly that must have been my fifth cross-continental flight out of six. And I think that's still a easy space to get COVID in. So we have really packed show today. On top of being joined by Adelita Grijalva, we're going to hear about really two items where we're going to launch, in effect, our congressional liaison program in a rapid fire way this week around two issues. One is around the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and we'll be hearing about that from members of um, uh, our anti-war issues organizing team at the top of the hour, next hour. And in a few minutes, I'm going to mention the other, which I'll talk about, which is Representative Jayapal and Representative Senator Sanders are reintroducing the College for All bill that, of course, we support on Wednesday. And so we're rapidly going to be contacting and encouraging everybody on this call to contact their Congress people and ask them to become original co-sponsors to for the bill. I'll be putting out an email hopefully by midday tomorrow, which will have all the details about what you should ask your Congress people to do. But at least for expediency reasons, in a few minutes, maybe right before I introduce Adelita Grijalva, I will share the email in Representative Jayapal's office, the worker in Jayapal's office who people should contact in order to let them know that the congressperson is going to become an original co-sponsor. And by the way, we would encourage everybody who's affiliated with another organization to also contact that email. His name is Jordan, is the young man inside Jayapal's office, and let them know that the organization is sponsoring College for All. I might as well stay on the subject for a second, and I'll allow Donna to let us know about the other special guest who we're going to have on this call, if storms over Wyoming allow her to join us. But just on College for All, College for All was actually legislation and a policy position that Senator Sanders supported in the 2016 election. In many respects, I mean, the call is very simple. If there's a public college or university, tuition should be free for people who attend a public university or college. And that's pretty much the legislation as it stands. And as people know, tuition has become exorbitantly high. It can remain exorbitantly high at private schools. That's the issue of those private institutions, whether they, Harvard, Yale, or whatever private school wants to have high tuition. That's their right to organize their institution that way. But the idea of College for All is through federal subsidies and a coordination with the states and localities that run the public schools, the public universities and colleges. And I think pretty much every public college or university is actually state run, not county or locally run, which of course they oversee high school and below. So I'll be working with the states to ensure that tuition is free. And people forget that in 2016, Bernie Sanders did not support universal student debt cancellation. Well, the universal student debt cancellation, which PDA was very central to launching, because we, along with Only the Debt Collective and an organization called Freedom to Prosper, reached out to congressional offices to see about someone who would introduce a universal student debt cancellation bill. And it was Ilhan Omar who responded, and that we worked with Ilhan Omar to release that. And so that got some traction. And when and Sanders spoke about student debt in his campaign in 2016, but he didn't officially support universal student debt cancellation as policy like he did college for all. But that's sort of the subject matter, and we all know what happened. Biden came into office. He proposed first one way and then another way to produce a significant amount of student debt cancellation, not universal, but highly significant amount of student debt cancellation. He also stalled all student debt payments, which actually were stalled going in because of the pandemic under Trump. Well, what's happened now with student debt, if you don't know, because so much happens, and I mean, it's a major story. But Trump has turned the light switch back on, and people are expected to pay for the first time, really, in 4 or 5 years, their student debts on a monthly basis. And there'll be no forgiveness. All of the Biden era efforts at forgiveness are now wiped away. And what is interesting in the court's rulings, though, is that at the level of student debt cancellation, whether this is a ploy by the right-wing courts or not, they declared law is that Congress needs to act. Okay? Well, of course, a lot of this debt is being accrued at public colleges and universities, which are themselves very expensive to attend. I know I am a junior in high school and I'm facing this part of my life, and I only have one child. We have a new coworker on the PDA staff with 3 kids, and 3 kids roughly the age of my daughter and younger. I can't even imagine what that feels like to a family. So College for All is a fantastic bill. And right now I'm going to hand off let's go first to Donna right now. And Donna will explain who our next guest is, because the brand new episode of Positively Progressive has just been placed online. And Donna's going to tell us about one of the guests who also will join us today. Welcome, Donna.
Hi, Alan. Best wishes to feel better. I had kind of a rough week myself with health, but different reasons.
Oh,
And I know how it feels to struggle through that. Keep going. I hope your recovery is speedy. I thank you too for getting orange juice. There you go. Little chicken soup. Where's your chicken soup?
when I can get the chicken soup. Yes, that too. I've had quite a bit recently.
Yes, you need a mother here. Your mom's in New York, right?
That's right. Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Anyway, thank you for getting the first episode, or the next episode of Positively Progressive is out today. And it features, I went back to 2 young people I interviewed in the beginning on Positively Progressive, because I felt like it was important, and I still feel it's vitally important for all of us to listen to young voices around us. What are they feeling? What are they seeing? How is it impacting their work lives? What's happening around them as they watch this. So I went back to 2 people who are in my life who I know relatively well. Brett Yoder was one of them. He's my grandson, who's also a Colorado School of Mines educated engineer. And Julie Hampton Lyon, who is with us today. And do you want to bring her on now, Alan, or you want to wait?
Let's wait. Let's wait until, if it's okay, if she's here, if it's okay with her, we'll wait until after Adelita Grijalva.
Perfect. I think that sounds great. But we're gonna talk to Julie. Julie is a very well educated. I'm very lucky that one of my grandsons married her, and she is brilliantly educated, and she speaks many languages. She just is a great gal, and she's a registered dietitian who has worked with government grants and so forth. So she knows what the impact is, what's going on right now. And I wanted to really talk to them and get into that. So we did that as an episode. And I hope you'll all listen, because if you haven't had a deep talk with the young people around you in your life, I'd urge you to do it, because they have ideas we don't yet have in some ways. They put the importance of different things at the forefront because it reflects the future and what's happening. And the college debt situation, I've heard people already this week, Alan, talk about their credit scores taking a hit immediately when our friend in Washington, not our friend, when they ripped off the protections of any kind of forgiveness, people got some real rude news, some real bad situations where people had really good credit. Now they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a problem. And I think everybody will have to think about it. Obviously, the banks have made a huge amount of money on student debt, where we all know that, and the colleges. When I think about it, I was blessed enough, and I was raising 6 kids at the time. I went to a private liberal arts school. I used to tease and say I was the token mother of 6. It was, the average age at my college was like 22. Now I was an old woman at 28, right? So here I thought I was so much older than those people, but I earned scholarship support. I had the support I needed financially to stay in that school. And I knew people who were going to the state schools, University of Colorado and other schools here, who amassed tremendous debts. My student dentist this week at the University of Colorado Dental School told me that the main loans that they rely on so that they can stay in those 4th-year classes and do everything they can to learn dentistry the right way are now at risk. And they got a letter from the university telling them they're not sure yet, but they wanted everybody to know that there's a possibility that some of these loan funds will go away. Imagine that. You're in your 4th year of study and you've taken on a lot of debt, and now somebody says, "Oh, might change now." Wow. We have to listen to these young people and what's going on in their lives, because I think they will help lead us out of this. So anyway, Alan, thank you for getting the podcast going. I'm so glad that our End Wars and Occupations team will talk. I have been heartbroken this week about what's going on for not only the children, but that is especially heartbreaking in Gaza. Watching the kids and watching them beg for food, watching them hold out their little hands and little cups trying to get any morsel of food and be turned away. What in the world, really?
Right.
What? This is not the way a civilized world works. It just is. And it's a horror story that we all need to be speaking about, but I know the End Wars and Occupation team will talk about that. So thank you. Back to you, Alan. And if you need help on the call, holler. I'll be happy to help.
Thank you so much, and looking forward to your guest joining us in a little while. And first, before we go to Paul Stapleton Smith to introduce our featured guest, Mike Fox with our PDA to-dos for the week, then back to me, and I'll introduce Paul, and then we'll go from there.
And rapid fire, because we want to make sure we're using our candidates' time effectively here. So, number 1, as always, gang, every Sunday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, we are here. Bring your friends in. Why? Because we are surrounded by people who get it here. Revel in that fact. That's goal number 1. Times are tough. Use this space to get re-energized, okay? Number 2, take notes, please. We're going to be covering a boatload of stuff here. So make sure you have something to take notes with. There's going to be stuff in the chat, but that thing starts getting absolutely huge and difficult to deal with if you save it later on. Best case scenario, take notes, okay? So there are 2 ways of helping: time and treasure. From a time standpoint, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank. Phone bankers, identify yourself as such in the chat. Help me bring in some more folks. We're definitely going to want to be jumping on the phones from across the country for our candidate today. So bottom line, we need folks signed up to phone bank like nobody's business. If you do not see the link in the chat, it's pdamerica.org/volunteer. Give us an hour and we'll make sure that you're on a productive project, okay? There's an awful lot of outreach to Congress going on as well. I'm going to be tossing into the chat the general to-do list. It's a big fat thing. Into the chat a link to a dynamic document that we've got going right now. So if you bookmark that, you'll know what's cooking at all times, okay? Now, from a treasure standpoint, we always want to hit the goal of not necessarily a dollar figure, but solidarity here, solidarity. Everybody can toss just $1 in. That's a beautiful thing. If you could do more than that, wonderful, please do. But at the end of the day, this call is about solidarity, us all, not only supporting the candidate that we're about to hear from, but likewise, solidarity in supporting each other in this work, okay? So our goal is 100% solidarity. We'll talk about that at the top of the hour. And back to you, Alan.
Well, thank you so much. And again, there'll be two major points of mobilization during the week too for PDA that are extracurricular, special this week. One is asking members of Congress, and soon to be a member of Congress, we hope will be Adelita Grijalva, and asking the current members of Congress, House of Representatives, and the Senate to become original co-sponsors of the College for All bill, which is going to close out original co-sponsorships joining on Wednesday. So you'll be contacting Pramila Jayapal's office in the House and Senator Sanders' office in the Senate. Now, there are a million reasons to love the theater, but one of them is that the organized workers of the International Alliance of Theater Stage Workers include Paul Stapleton Smith, one of the great union organizers in the country, and he is here to introduce a brilliant new candidate for Congress in Southern Arizona, Adelita Grijalva. Paul, welcome to our town hall.
I am so grateful as always to be with all of you. This is our PDA family, and I am so enormously delighted to introduce Adelita Grijalva. And please, Ellen and Mike and all of you, it could take me an hour, but I'll try to do this quickly and fairly because we've got to get to our esteemed sister here, Adelita. So, of course, Adelita Grijalva is truly a lifelong public servant. She's a powerful advocate for our working families here in Arizona. And she graduated from University of Arizona. She began her 25-year career. I mean, she doesn't look like she could have done that. She's 25 years she's been working. She worked with our Pima County teen court system, doing restorative justice programs, incredibly important for reforming our court systems. Really urgent work. And that wasn't entirely sufficient for her because she was first elected to public office. She served on one of our second largest school district here in Arizona, which is larger than some states, the Tucson Unified School Board, District Governing Board, and she championed the expansion of preschool access, enormously important for all of us, right? Nationally and locally. But she also defended a nationally recognized civil rights case for Mexican-American studies. I think many of you on here would know about that. And in 2020, she was elected to our Pima County Board of Supervisors, and significantly, she was the first Latina and only the second woman to serve as chair of that board. And really just makes my heart warm. She won with 73% of the vote, right? This woman works campaigns like nobody's business. As a supervisor, she's going to tell you what she champions because it's the same thing she's been doing for us all these years, from affordable housing, climate resiliency. And for me, she's walked our picket lines. She's walked picket lines with me. She has supported workers. She takes on management because she believes in our 21st century economic bill of rights. And she believes that we have to have an economy that works for all of us. And we're going to be doing that every day. So with that, again, I could go on for so long, but Sister Adelita Grijalva, we're so grateful for you to be here. And I'm grateful that I've been able to have you as my elected leader for so long. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you all so much for being here. Good afternoon. My name is Adelita Grijalva, and I am the granddaughter of a bracero, a Mexican immigrant who worked really hard and took the invitation by the United States for this need for help, which we still need, by the way. But and he met my nana, who was born in Nogales, Arizona, and they married and had 3 children. And of those 3 children, there's a member of Congress, a nurse with a master's in anthropology, and a social worker with 2 master's degrees. So from the granddaughter of a bracero to the daughter of a member of Congress, that is the American dream that we all are fighting for. And I am running for Congress because that American dream is in jeopardy. I am the proud mom of 3 kids, all public school, students. I went through all public education. Coincidentally, my kids go to the middle school and high school that I went to, so I'm very excited about that. But my daughter's graduating from high school next year, and we are a single income family. I was elected overwhelmingly for a second term on the Pima County Board of Supervisors in January, sworn in, and my father passed away 2 months ago. And I had to have a hard time. I had to sit and think about whether that was something that I wanted to do. I understand what it's like to have a parent in Congress. And so, you're sort of not as involved as the kind of parent that I am. And so I had to talk to each of my kids and say, is this something that we want to do? And my daughter, who was the first petition she could sign was mine. She just turned 18. The first person she can vote for is me. And she said, well, if not you, who? And so I opted to get in this race and fight for progressive values that my dad fought for, and continue this legacy of standing up for those who do not have a voice. And so the things that I will champion in office are the things that I championed while I was running a nonprofit, on the TUSD school board, to the Pima County Board of Supervisors. It is access, opening doors of opportunity. It is public education, open space, preservation of our environment and protecting it, and ensuring that people in our communities have better options year to year for their children and their grandchildren. And so this district is incredibly diverse. We have 257 miles of the border with Mexico. The cities are as diverse from Tucson to Bisbee, Douglas, Nogales, Sahuarita. Yuma County, Avondale, Tolleson. Every community is unique and different. And I think that is the value of being in elected office and having the privilege of serving so many people, is understanding what the needs are. What are those umbrella needs that we all have? And then how do we ensure that we're being the best advocate for our families? So I think right now we have way too many politicians in office, and we need more public servants. We need people less concerned about being reelected and more concerned about protecting the people. I have spent the last 3 decades of my life right here in Southern Arizona, serving my community. I think that I have had 22 years in elected office, and I have missed 3 meetings, and I have 3 children. And I feel that it is our responsibility, obligation, and privilege that when you're in elected office, you show up. So 2 days after my dad passed away, when I was just like a weepy mess, I showed up to the board meeting because we were talking about the budget, and my district I needed to make sure that I was there advocating for them. I've spent my life as an advocate fighting for opportunities that we all deserve. And in Congress, I will work to create opportunities to help our families achieve their American dream, no matter who you are, where you come from, or where you live. So I have, as far as background, thank you, Paul, for talking about it. But I do think that it's important to note that the work that I've done has not been alone. One of the first things that I did on the Pima County Board of Supervisors is look to the county's strategic plan. Because, being a member of a school board, I've gone through like 5 or 6 of those processes, and Pima County doesn't have a strategic plan. They will in like 2 months because we worked on it for 4 years. But in the meantime, I created a group of people to help me identify what those strategic goals and pillars were going to be in the work that we did in Pima County. And I think that's why we were so effective in being able to establish things that we didn't have before. When I first got to the county, Pima County was not in the affordable housing business. They left that to the cities and municipalities. And now we are. And we were able to leverage $5 million a year for 3 years into $87 million of private and public funding in order to increase the number of affordable homes in Pima County, and the construction and rehab of mobile homes, which was also not on the radar. When I was on the TUSD board, I just had my first daughter, and I wanted her to go to a public school preschool program in one of our schools. And we expanded all of these options by like 500%. Every elementary school had a preschool, but we didn't have funding for it. So we had wait lists for the Head Start programs and the federally funded programs, but didn't have any sliding scales established for working families. So one of the first things that we did when I got to the Pima County Board of Supervisors is dedicate $10 million to preschool. We are the only county in the state, and arguably the only one in the nation, that is putting efforts like this directly into making sure that our young people and working families have preschool, because it's not just an incredible benefit for the student, the child. It is a lifeline for working families. The other thing that we worked on is to make sure that they were in our public schools, because public education has been decimated over time with lack of funding, especially in Arizona. We hover between 48 and 49 in the nation in funding for our public schools. So what we did is make sure that those programs are in our schools. So it would be a pathway for you to continue into that school. So I know firsthand how federal resources impact our community at the local level and what it looks like. And the federal cuts the funds from the Department of Education means a difference in ensuring that a child with special needs gains access to resources that they need to learn or not. It means the difference between a child having food in their stomachs to learn and grow, or having to go to school hungry. All of the occupational therapy, physical therapy, all of those interventions that are required and should be by our public schools, all of those programs are what is at stake right now. As a mom, I appreciate the challenges facing families and women at a very personal level. For a significant period of last year, my daughter, who just turned 18, had less rights than my Nana. And that is frightening for so many people. I'm running because I believe in the values that my dad shared, but that are shared of this community. And I know this community wants to keep a progressive voice in the House who fights, which is why I also know that this race is getting a lot of attention and will get a lot of outside resources. Because just when I was speaking to the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the chair, Representative Kassad, said, "I'm so excited to have you here, and it's the reason why people are going to come after you." So I am glad to be in a space where you all understand that the values that we have shared are important, which are defending Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and the VA, protecting our rights and freedoms, and defending our democracy. The Trump administration is rolling back our freedoms with every swipe of his pen, from freedom of speech to reproductive rights to LGBTQAI+ rights, voting rights, and more. I vow to stand up for our communities against this tyrannical crusade of his. Fight Trump's economic chaos and promote affordability and lower the cost of living. So promoting affordable housing, healthcare, lowering the cost of groceries. Our families should not have to pick between, groceries and taking their kid to urgent care. Fight climate change and environmental justice for all. That is a landmark piece of legislation that I would be honored to fight and carry across the finish line. And fully fund public education and supporting comprehensive, humane immigration. So I will take a pause there, and I'm happy to answer questions or, continue to chat.
Well, why don't we
Thank
do
you so much
this?
for your time.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for stepping up to run. I know that's a huge decision to make, especially with 3 children. And you also understand how Washington works and how difficult that will be. I'm actually going to pass off to Paul and then to Donna for maybe them to have just reflections or questions to add. But before that, and you do have to excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. I did want to say this. I had meant to say this before Paul introduced you. I met your father first when I was the program director at KPFK Radio Los Angeles, and a guy named Antonio Gonzalez, who was the founding executive director of Southwest Voter Education and Registration Project, and great activist who unfortunately died right about the time I became the executive director of PDA. And I was about as close to him as people on this call remember Senator Fort from Georgia. And I've often reflected, especially since Senator Fort died, how transformative my having Antonio around would have been for my tenure as ED, and I miss him a lot. But he had a radio show on KPFK, and Raul Grijalva came in and he gave an interview. And I was in my office, I was listening, and then I came down the hallway. This is a representative from Congress saying these things. And afterwards, I'm sitting around with Antonio, and I go, wow, that's amazing. I mean, are there that many Congress people who feel that way? And he goes, and this was before Bernie Sanders ran for president. And your father was one of the very few really true, sincere, and broadest minded in the sense of like a deep international and national understanding of the world. And Antonio unfortunately shook his head. Oh, no, he's only one of about 5 or 8. That's what he said. So look, we are absolutely honored to have you step up and and we're going to do everything we can through the local chapter in Tucson, through the state organization in Arizona, and nationally to make sure that you win this race, win this primary, and then get elected to fill out the term, and then to continue on in Congress after that. So
And then
thank you for
continue
being.
one long campaign.
Yeah, no, and also that no, that's the thing though. We got to get you to win and to be like the kind of congressperson like your dad, like he was an unchallengeable congressperson because he served his constituents so brilliantly, and because he was fearless in having this broad analysis, which for the community that he represented made him unchallengeable. Paul Stapleton Smith, please.
I'm tongue-tied here. This Adelita's race means so much to us. Long endorsed, labor endorsed over all the many years and cycles, always. And Raul, of course, was like Adelita. When we need legislation passed, when we need amendments, when we need guidance, as on our federal side, and then down here on the local side, crafting things like heat protections for workers. I mean, Adelita is just brilliant at crafting that legislation. I get to work with, as many of you do, federal folks, and then lots of state legislative stuff. And then here are supervisors on the local level, since our state legislature is paralyzed effectively, as is Congress and the Senate. But we get things done here, and that's the thing that really is so striking for all of the candidates. I serve on many candidate endorsement teams. And Adelita is just the model for us, and it's just, I wish we had 5 more Adelitas in all of our other races. But that said, I'm not sure what else I can contribute. I really want folks to be able to ask her questions, and the access though for our teams, so pragmatic, so easy, so simple, and her campaign team. I mean, it's just I just am so delighted, and I don't get to be delighted about all of the Democrats that we have in our races. I say to my PDA family. That said, are we ready for questions from our group?
Well, let's go to Donna first for just her thoughts, and then over to our stack. Donna?
Just a quick comment. I know I put up behind me one of my favorite
Yeah.
photos of myself
you.
and Raul Grijalva.
Oh, wow.
I sense in you, first of all, I'm sorry that you lost your dad. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I know that's a very painful thing because I sense that he was very close to you and you were very close to him. Hard to lose dad. And I hope that you understand, I sense in you the same thing I always felt in him, this quiet strength, this quiet, determined strength that knew exactly what you stand for and was willing to work to get there. And I appreciate that so much. I have a bunch of family who now live in Tucson. I'm going to kick them up later today and say, hey, you got to get busy helping this candidate. And for your kids, it is a huge decision, but thank you. Thank you for stepping up in the way that your father stepped up long ago. And I'll close with this. I remember Tim Carpenter loved your dad. Tim was our executive director and our founder. And I used to love to watch the two of them shuffle down the hall in the congressional. They would just shuffle as fast as you can imagine. Talking. Your dad quieter, right? But always making good decisions. And thank you for running. You're gonna win. I know we'll have to help you, but let's get you over the line. Thank you for sharing your dad with all of us for all those years.
Thank you, Donna, so much. I think people have asked that question a lot, like, well, what's different between you and your dad? Someone actually said, tell me what's different. I'm like, well, well, the other thing that I thought was funny is someone said, you look just like your dad. And I was like,
I don't think that.
I don't. I do have the cheeks. Yes, that is true. And of the
Oh, that's
three,
true. The cheeks. Yeah.
the cheeks, it is for sure. That is
Oh,
the head size. That's all him. Yes. But I will say that my dad, I'm so proud of what my father achieved, not just for Arizona, but for our country. And when you have, I am so privileged to have more Pendleton blankets than any one person should own because of the gifts from so many tribes, not Arizona tribes. I mean, yes, Arizona tribes, they all showed a lot of love, but throughout the country. I just got a bolo from Omaha, Nebraska. I mean, it just
Amazing.
the tributes still keep coming in. And for so many people from Puerto Rico, they were like, your dad was not our congressman, but I always felt like he was speaking for me. And so I always appreciate that. And my dad gave me great shoes to fill. I mean, and I stand on his shoulders, but I stand on my own 2 feet. And I have a record
Yeah.
that I have serving my community here in Southern Arizona for the last few decades. So the frustration for me, and it will always be, I think, is that there were some things that my dad could get away with that a lot of these organizations that come in and try to influence races and stuff, he predated them. So they were like, he was like this mountain in the middle, like no one's moving him one way or the other. But I do think that in this environment, when we are not in normal times and you can't negotiate with terrorists, there is a difference here where I'm walking in, I know it's going to be a different experience for me than it was for my dad. And also, let's be honest, I'm a woman and a woman of color. So people think that they underestimate me all the time. And I welcome it. I'm like, underestimate me. Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it. That's great.
My name is Adelita. And Adelita is, these are the women that fought alongside the men in the Mexican Revolution. So I have a very thick skin. And I'm going to stay humble in the way I am all the time, because what I have to always do is look myself in the mirror and have to look my kids in the eye. And my kids, I think the wall of progressive, I'm like right here. They have pushed that way over. They are more, in some issues, they are more progressive than I am. Some of it has to do with their age, I'm sure. But I love surrounding myself with people that are going to challenge me. And I have people all around me that do that, but I have a family that does it for me too. So thank you for the nice things about my dad.
well, thank you. And I will say this. Oh, go ahead, Donna.
It's so important. I was going to say exactly that. Even though you stand on his shoulders, oh my gosh, you have so much to give that Congress right now that we need. And Alan knows we need more women there. He knows I'm always going to fight for that. So awesome. That's amazing. Only one personal question. Did your dad help name you?
Yes, he did. So I was supposed to be a junior. I was supposed to be Raul Jr. And everyone said I was a boy. And then when I was born, they're like, just kidding. So I was nameless. And at the time, my mom had a C-section with all three of us. So at the time, you're in the hospital for like a week. And I was nameless for a while. And my mom is the oldest of 5. And her mom, my grandma, passed away when she was 17. And so I was the first child in that group of, of any of the sisters. And so they said, well, you have to name her Shirley. And my dad, Mr. Chicano Power, like, I can't have my kid with Shirley. Like, can we mix it up a little bit? So when he was coming to pick my mom up, I was still nameless. The song Si Adelita came on the radio, and he walked in and said, what do you think of Adelita? And he's like, my mom's like, that's okay. So I'm Adelita Shirley Grijalva. Mom got the Shirley in anyway. My grandma's from Wisconsin. so it's quite a mix. Yeah.
Well, one of the things, of course, PDA is perhaps most famous for the role we played in drafting Bernie Sanders to run for president, to run as a Democrat. And but on a consequence of that, of course, it inspired a lot of particularly young women to run and win for Congress. So unlike back when your father was at KPFK radio with Antonio and me, it's not just a matter of 5 or 8, really great progressives. It's now a larger pool of really excellent people that you'll get to meet with. And we're pretty active up on the Hill right now, and we got great relationships with the progressive offices. And I think you're going to fit in marvelously there. You're going to also find a lot of sisterhood up there, which is really brilliant and always more needed, as Donna said, though. So first up is Jim Carpenter. Jim, please unmute. And we do, by the way, you won't see people's faces. We've been Zoom bombed too often that now we can only allow people to speak with their names listed. So Jim,
I understand.
yes, Jim, you're up. Jim?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thanks. First of all, Adelita, thank you for being on this program. I first met your father about 20 years ago in Cleveland at the beginning of PDA, and he was there with Daniel Ellsberg from the Pentagon Papers and David Swanson from World Beyond War. And I was thinking, this is so cool to have a congressperson, a real congressperson, in a meeting with these anti-war activists. So I hope you can carry on that tradition. I know this issue is going to come up later, but I wanted to ask you your opinion on this issue. What do you think about the starvation that is now going on in Gaza and the fact that the United States is still giving Israel weapons and political support, even though they're starving the children of Gaza?
Well, it is an atrocity, and we must bring an end to the violence in the Middle East as quickly as possible. It is critical that humanitarian aid is immediately restored to the Gaza Strip, and the remaining Israeli hostages who are in captivity must be safely returned without a delay. The surest way to bring them home, defeat Hamas, and begin the process of rebuilding Gaza for the Palestinian people is through a long-term, just, and peaceful resolution, which the United States has a responsibility to work towards. I supported two-state. I'm sorry?
And the weapons to Israel, what do you feel about that?
No, I mean, humanitarian aid has to happen. It has to happen. And so I support a two-state solution that ensures Israelis and Palestinians can live in peace, security, and dignity. I've been told, and side by side, I know that it is a tenuous thing, but I also know that the United States has been a part of interfering with this process and trying to aid in different ways. And I think that our participation has not been helpful at all. One of the things that I thought was really interesting is Trump made the promise that day one there would be peace there would be peace on the Gaza Strip in the Middle East, and that is actually one promise I wish he would have kept. But here we are.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also he promised we should note peace in Ukraine, and that is also equally
and Syria,
feeling.
and yes,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that I think is very frustrating for me is this issue is an issue where if you if this person supports you, then these persons think then you're an anti-Semite, and then it has been a back and forth, and respectfully in local government, it's not been an issue that has been something that we had any sort of input in, but it will be, and I commit to keeping my door open and talking to people. But I do think that had I been kind of a voting person in the 70s, I definitely am a peace and love kid. That is just where I am. That's where I am. Maybe it was my parents. I don't know. But yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I'm gonna Maggie Boyd next. So Maggie, please unmute. Then we're gonna go Rick and then Nina. So Maggie, please unmute.
Hi, thank you so much for coming, Adelita. I've been looking forward to this. Your father was quite the progressive, and I really had a lot of respect for him. I'd like to know, if you were in Congress right now, what steps would you take to try to thwart what Trump is trying to do?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is continuing to pick apart some of the just complete. They're just lies and misrepresentations, and so you have to be on it all the time. I do think that the committee work that's happening and the frustration that many of who I align myself with, like Representative Stansbury and Representative Kassad, and that what I'm hearing from them is that they're in committees and the Republicans are just not speaking at all. They already have their votes. And so I do think that continuing to apply pressure to Congress and say, you have to do more. And then talking about how these impacts are going to hurt everyday people repeatedly. Because when you have to, and fortunately or unfortunately for me, it's a very easy comparison. I have a child who I literally cannot afford to send to college, and she is top 25 in her class. So there were all these promises made to generations of young people. So how are we supporting young people to stay in our communities and get the education that we all want them to have, the training that we want them to have, and come back into our community? We have vacancies, we have people being treated inhumanely, and just talking about those stories on repeat. I have thousands of them because I have traveled this district and gone to every community, because I think it's important to know who I need to talk to in order to help inform legislation. And also to all of my union brothers and sisters and the organizations that have helped me. We're endorsed by both senators in Arizona, by Gabby Giffords. I mean, like, I just think that those endorsements are really powerful. Senator Sanders endorsed me. Those are not things that happen in a vacuum. And I think that continuing to talk about what the issues are and calling them out when they're just straight up lies is what we have to do. And fortunately for me, I have experience of being able to do that. There are many times on the boards that I've been on that I was the lone no or the lone yes. So being able, and I am a little bit of a talk.
Thank you.
Particularly arguing what the points are is not something I'm afraid of.
Well, thank you so much. And actually, before we go to Rick, remind our audience when the primary is, when the general is, and
So
yes.
ballots are dropping, mailed out, will be in mailboxes June 18th. And the primary election is July 15th. So what we're estimating based on historically here in Southern Arizona is the people that are going to vote are going to get that ballot, going to fill it out, going to throw it back in the mailbox a week or a week and a half. And then after that, it's just chasing. And the vast majority of people are going to vote by mail. And they're estimating on the high end that we have 75,000 people voting in this primary, the special primary. So many people just are like, yeah, I'll vote for you in November. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Yes, vote for me in November, but also, hello, before then in July. So the attention is going to be pretty significant. One of my opponents already had an IE mail out stuff, and we're in the middle of May. So we're going to be inundated. And so trying to remind people that it is a really special election, and also, for phone banking, to tell people, if you put that ballot in the mail, people will stop calling you. Yay, it's a magic pill. I think that that's going to be important. But then the general election is September 20th.
And
but the big fight is for the primary.
Right, of course. It's a heavily blue district. And so June 18th, July 15th, everybody on this call, take note, because we're going to be contacting you, and we're going to be getting phone banks going. We're going to be calling you to district. And we're going to try to get, that 75,000, that's about 1 out of every 10 citizens. Of course, there's young people included in the average congressional district in the United States. We got to boost that number for Adelita. We got to make this a comfortable victory for her, and a show of force for a great progressive. So Rick, you are up next. Please unmute.
I just want to say I'm sorry to learn several months ago your father. I know he was in Congress a long time. He may have been older than me, I'm not sure. But you answered a bunch of my questions just in the last comment about when the election is, and you still have to run again in November, which seems...
So the way
Okay.
this is I'm finishing up my dad's term.
Oh,
and so you get all the way to the end of this year. But you have to, the primary, the regular session would start again. So we go like this. Right now it's July 15th, 2025 is the primary. September 23rd, 2025 is the general. And then August 2026 is the primary. And then November 2026 is the general. So that's why I feel like it's just one long campaign of like 18 months. Because if you think about when you would start a congressional campaign for August 26th primary, it would be now. But we're in the middle of one. So it'll be pretty long. And then I do anticipate, if successful, when successful, that I would be primaried again. I mean, I just think that I will not have that sort of privilege that my dad did. But it's just the reality.
You'll get there.
Well, yeah, and we're going to get you there quick because I think you're going to be a great congressperson, and we're gonna celebrate your victory so loudly. So, yeah, and by the way, Mike, if you can put the link in again, just people should donate what they can. There's a way to split donations, obviously, between the candidate and PDA. PDA will be using all that money to work on the campaign, to support the campaign, creating phone banks and doing everything we can, door to door and everything for Adelita's campaign on behalf of ourselves, PDA, because we have officially endorsed her candidacy. Nina Singer, you're up now. Please unmute.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Thanks. I was a little late. But Adelita, you sound wonderful, and I signed up to help, call people in your district. I understand that's a blue district that your father had, which is great. You sound wonderful. You'd be a great addition to the caucus. And I was just wondering, quick thought and quick question. Have you thought any getting support from Ruben Gallego?
Oh, he endorsed early.
Oh, he did? Oh, wonderful.
He's already done like an online appeal, and yeah, he was very public early on. So Senator Kelly has been as well.
Oh,
and,
Senator.
Yeah, and former Representative Gabrielle Giffords. Senator Kelly has, just 2 days ago, we did Hands Off Medicaid press conference that was for me, really. I mean, my campaign signs were everywhere, and he's like, let's do this. And then he did a roundtable with labor. So he put out an appeal. I mean, he's been very supportive and very active, and how can we help? And both of them have done really, they're working very hard, which I appreciate, because I do think that it means a lot. And then we have every progressive legislator here in Southern Arizona has endorsed me. Many unions that I've had longstanding relationships with. I have a fundraiser 2 today, one with educators, because the National Education Association endorsed me as well, and environmental groups like Sierra Club and all of our local friends here. So it's been very helpful.
Awesome. I'm an educator in Florida, but I will support you too. I'm not in Arizona, so I will support you. Sound great, and we'll get you over the finish line.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Good luck.
And thank you so much, Nina. And let's go to Melissa, who I know is in the state of Arizona, then over to you, Dennis. Please unmute, Melissa.
I'm right here. Thanks for
Yes, we can hear
having
you.
me.
Yep.
Congratulations. Yes. I would like to know, since JFK Jr. has basically dismantled Section 504, what will you do in the state to protect the educational rights of disabled children?
Yeah, I think that what we really have been forced to do is attack in court. And so I just talked to our Pima County attorney yesterday, who is fighting to get funds that were already allocated, designated in our account, if you will, at the county level, fight for those. And it's the same thing. You just have to continue to fight. You have to go to court. You have to get attorney generals that are on your side. We have to make sure that we increase the number of progressive candidates there. And then one of the things that people keep asking me is like, would you support increasing the number of Supreme Court justices? I'm like, well, not right now, but yeah, we can talk about it later, but I don't want Trump appointing anybody else. So yeah, I do think that it's important for us to continue to fight in court, because what we're going to have to do is have parents advocate. And one of the most well-organized and incredible advocates for their children that I've ever met are parents of children with exceptional needs that need those services. And those are required by law. And so for Kennedy to just sort of make these sweeping, inflammatory, and completely wrong statements publicly, you need to have more and more people willing to stand up and say that's just completely not true.
Thank you.
If I may, one more thing. I'm a disabled adult. How would you support them?
Well, it's
How-
ensuring that benefits and resources, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, that we're not cutting any of those programs. And we have a lot of our veterans that also qualify for many services. And my brother-in-law works for the VA. And, you know, when you're looking at 80,000 people being cut from that system, the impacts are significant, and it's ripples throughout communities. You might not be a veteran, but your father is, or your child gets those benefits. I mean, it really is, it's a tremendous number of people that would be negatively impacted. And just Medicare and Medicaid cuts alone in Arizona would devastate. They would devastate us.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, Melissa, for your questions. Dennis Bryant, please unmute.
Good afternoon.
We can hear you, Dennis. If you
Yes,
can.
can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Dennis.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Dennis, and I'm calling from Michigan. I have a comment and a question. My comment is, could you put your website in the chat, please? Your campaign website, if it hasn't been done already.
I believe it has, but we can do that again.
Okay, because I got on a little late. My apologies.
No worries.
So there's this. So we have the person that's in the White House right now, trying to eliminate DEI. My congressperson, which is Sri Tanadar in the 13th congressional district in Michigan, has not spoke out about the elimination of DEI, for the president to eliminate DEI, and you know, just in all studies, DEI has benefited white women. And what could you do as a congresswoman, you know, if elected, hopefully we'll get you elected, in order to speak out against it and to have more white women speak out against it?
Well, I mean, the thing, I feel sometimes that I'm in the twilight zone. I don't know if everyone else feels that way. That it's like, I don't know when diversity, equity, and inclusion became bad words. I just don't understand it. But I do think that it is more and more women, more and more people of color that have to continue to stand up for the fact that we would not have access had it not for policies that were inclusive. And so I think that we have to do more to sort of galvanize our supporters and other women organizations, because so much of what we do, we talk about reproductive rights, which I think is very important. We talk about access, which is very important. But access to all of those programs involves being able to get your foot in the door. And that is one of the things that we're not able to do right now. And so I think boycotts have been helpful. I think that they've made a difference, and I think that we continue have to be creative about how we fight back and get more and more of us involved in fighting back on some of these issues, because and I've noticed that even in asking for support for this campaign, everyone has their sort of niche, like we do this, we do that, and I understand that, but I think there's some overarching access issues that we have to work on.
We're going to close the stack now. I probably should have done this earlier, but Amon Joseph, we're going to go to you next, then Dan O'Neill. Maybe have you back to back, and then we will. I know we have to respect Adelita's time. She's in the middle of the campaign. Dan O'Neill, you'll be on after Amon. Amon Joseph, you can please unmute. Please unmute. Iman. If you're unable to unmute, we'll go to Dan and come back to you. Dan O'Neill, please unmute. And Amon, just unmute. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can. Hi. Yes, welcome.
Yes. Hello, everyone. And hello, Adelitas. You have a beautiful name, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
And good luck on running. I'm Dr. Joseph. I ran for State Senate District 18 last year. Didn't make it through primary. and I'm willing to run again this year. I mean, next year for assembly. Hopefully it will work through. I just have a quick question for you. We have a water problem, as you know, especially with Arizona. It actually depends a lot on Colorado. What I want to ask you a question. What will you do in Congress to protect Arizona's water for future generation, including tribal and rural communities, please?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. So, in a lot of my tours, I've talked to farmers in Yuma. I've talked to members of the Tohono Nation in trying to figure out like the pathway and the number of communities that are being left out and left behind when you're talking about water. I think conservation is incredibly important, but I also think that minimizing the number of polluters and the number of people that are just using exorbitant amount of water, especially groundwater, for the different projects that are going on in the country. One of the things that I thought was crazy is that we had it required Governor Hobbs to stop it and action to stop a bottled water company for outside of our country to using our groundwater for their purified water. I think that really we have to tighten up the regulations regarding water, because what I thought was really interesting is I went to California, I don't know, 7 or 8 months ago, and there is a drought there. Everywhere you go, if you're in a hotel, they're like, use that towel more than once. They all their everything is designed around conservation. It'll tell you like the water pressure is low and this is why. And you literally cross into Arizona and apparently the problem is gone. We don't talk about it. We don't there's nothing about conservation anywhere. So I think making sure that we're all on the same page, that we have to do that. And then we have to have stronger water policies in order to protect Arizona, protect our groundwater, and protect access to the Colorado River. Because it's not getting better. And we have so many local governments that are living in denial here in Arizona about what our reality is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Iman, and Dr. Joseph.
Dan?
And Dan.
Nice to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can you hear me, Alan?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. Adelita, I'm so happy to see you again.
Nice to see you.
We just were together last Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And that was a great event that we were at on Wednesday. I just want to thank you again for coming. I want to tell everybody that's here, look, you don't have to be in Arizona. If you're in Arizona, we're going to put you to work. But if you're not in Arizona, we still want to put you to work. And I think if you get Nicholas to make sure he puts in the chat how people can phone bank, how people can knock on doors if they live in Tucson. But if you're in Michigan, you can make phone calls and get Adelita over the top. And we want people to join the phone team. And that means you got to get in touch with Mike Fox. Our phone team will then work with her phone team. And boy, we're going to make miracles happen and we're going to get her elected. So anyway, thank you so much for coming. And Arizona is behind you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support.
And thank you so much for being here, Adelita. And you have full solidarity from Progressive Democrats of America. We'll be supporting you in all the ways we can, locally, statewide, nationally. And just your final thoughts for today.
I just am very appreciative of the time. I want to commit that my door is going to continue to be an open door. There are certain policies that I feel very strongly about, like environmental justice for all, health equity for all. Those are all things that I want to ensure get across the finish line. But there are going to be many opportunities that some of you on this call are experts in that I want to be able to tap into, because I have to say, I never assume I'm the smartest person in the room, but I sure know who to call when I need to. And that's part of being inclusive and keeping the door open. And so I don't have every policy formulated in my head about every issue, but I do know that some of you on this call, just based on the little pops up that came in through like different chats, that you have very strong opinions. Well, the door is going to stay open, and the accessibility to me is going to continue, and I'm going to figure out ways to continue to have robust dialogue in a meaningful way about what we're doing, because I think that that is going to be really important. And I encourage you to go look at what we did in Pima County. After every single meeting, I did a summary of what it was that I voted on and why. And then I look on Congress and I'm like, I am so excited that people are doing sort of the same thing. How do we continue to keep people involved? And so you know what's happening. There is this, the explosion of social media has a lot of pros and cons, but the pro is that you know what we're doing all the time, because as a public servant that is paid for by tax dollars, you should know what I'm doing all the time. That should be your expectation. So I know that there are many issues we could have delved into really much deeper, and I commit to continuing to have that dialogue because it's important. It's important. We're not always going to agree on maybe how we get there, but I think our values are the same. And once you start with that basis, it's only, we can only build up from here. So I want to thank you all so much for your time and attention. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your support, because in talking to the needs that we're going to have, you have these ideas on how we're going to outreach to voters, and the amount of resources dollar-wise that it takes to do some of the things we want to do. It's sometimes a little daunting, I'm not going to lie, but how we overcome that is people power. And so our campaign is called La Gente for Grijalva, a little ode to my dad on the a whole lot of people for Grijalva. But I do remember the first time that my dad got elected, he was outspent 10-1. And the only way we did that is with people power. So thank you for being part of the people that are going to help get us there. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just one more time, look into the chat and find the place to learn more about Adelita's campaign for Congress. Again, ballots drop on June 18th. Primary date is on July 15th, and that's the important competition here. So we got to get going right away, folks, and mobilize and support. And if Mike Fox, if you can also drop in there the way that people can donate to both PDA's efforts and the campaign itself. We'll split the donations for that link that comes in from PDA. And thank you again so much for being with us, Adelita.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
This is a nice way to start the next week. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It is indeed a nice way. And a very good week it will be for me, much better than my last week when I unfortunately got ill. So thank you so much. And let's first go to Mike Fox next with a summary of our PDA to-dos as we do at the top of the hour. And then let's Jim and Donna, let's bring you both forward and we'll negotiate. We're going to get to both subjects. We want to respect Julie's time, have Donna's dialogue with Julie, and then we also want to get to the issue of Palestine. And maybe what we'll do is go to Mike Fox, maybe have Jim immediately after, if he can go in 5 minutes, and cover what needs to be done in terms of the PDA outreach to support the ending the inhumanitarian blockade of Gaza that's going on. Mike Fox, take it away.
And thank you, Alan. And I'll be real quick because we're a little behind here. The following folks I'm thanking, and I'm not going to be able to thank some folks because there's a link that went elsewhere, which is totally cool, but I'm just saying, I don't know who all donated via her direct link or have volunteered via her direct link, but I can get you our information and our thank yous, and thank you everyone who has done either of those. But the ones I can personally thank are Mark and phone banker Beverly double dipping, and phone banker Michael double dipping, and phone banker Carl double dipping, and oh good, Shirley out in Oakland, thanks so much, Shirley, and Marciel, phone banker Marciel double dipping, and double dipping Carol out of West Virginia, one of our stalwart phone bankers double dipping, thank you sister, and Kenneth and Charles and phone banker Betsy double dipping, and phone banker Rick double dipping, and Sally and phone banker Aaron out in Arizona double dipping, and Linda, our chapter head in Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, double dipping with us as well. She's triple dipping. She's quadruple dipping. Thank you, Linda. And phone banker Mary, thank you. And Rick twice. So I guess that counts as a triple. And phone banker Charlotte and Dr. Bill in the house. Thank you, brother. And Sel and Kathleen and Carol, excuse me. Sorry for that mispronunciation there, Carol. and Margaret, and Rick again. Rick's on fire. And Neil, filmmaker Mary Ellen, and Bob out in Missouri, our chapter head, and C. Arthur, and Dr. Sonneborn, always double dipping. Thank you, brother. Same with double dipping Dr. Deutsch, and Michael, and that looks, yeah, and Michael, who always starts us off here each and every week out in Chicago. Thank you, Michael. All right, so let's keep it rolling here, gang. This call is about, first and foremost, bonding as a community. Secondly, hitting goals. Okay, so we're still a little bit short on our goal of 100% solidarity here. I want to thank the 17 folks who have signed up via our link thus far to make calls. We have 247 people on this call. Come on, gang. We got to get to way over 20% of us actually getting in the game, okay? The goal is 100% solidarity, perfect world. So let's make it happen. If you can, any amount you can donate, $1, absolutely wonderful. Nothing but love. If you can do more, please do. We're still a little bit short on donations today, so I'll make the commitment. Next three-figure donation, all I can do is 100. But if you do a three-figure donation, I'll toss in $100 of my money to show solidarity with you. All right, gang, thanks so much. And back to you, Alan. We'll get to our get to more of these goals during family time once we wrap the specific topics that we're covering here. Back to you,
Okay.
Alan.
So Donna, please unmute Donna, and then Jim Carpenter too. I do want to say something about someone put in the chat. Someone mentioned Donovan McKinney challenging in Michigan's 13th. That is a race we are very interested. So thank you for that, Dennis. We'll be looking into that in the coming weeks and possibly have a guest on around that soon. But that goes to primaries much later than what we're dealing with in this special election. So Jim Carpenter, Dan O'Neill, please unmute one of you. And what I'm hoping to negotiate here is that maybe if we can just get the clear information out about what we're going to do with Gaza, then we can go to Donna. That sounds like maybe the best bet. But is Jim still with us? Dan, can you unmute if Jim is not with us? Hi, Dan.
I'm
Alan,
sorry.
Dan is with us. I mean, Jim Carpenter is with us.
Yeah,
Alan.
Jim Carpenter, if you could unmute. I don't see his name in front of me the way I saw Dan.
Did you need me?
Yeah, because I thought maybe you could explain, if we can't get Jim unmuted, what it is where the IoT is asking in terms of support for which legislation or which letter to sign on to. And if
Okay,
yeah.
Where's Jim? Did he take off?
No, I didn't take off. Let me fucking unmute.
There you go. You shouldn't say that online. We heard you.
I'm sorry. I didn't know you could hear me.
Well, what happens on this, Jim, is that when you don't have your hand raised, you're not at the top of the queue, and the staff has to go through alphabetically and find you.
Okay, sorry for I was trying to unmute numerous times. Sorry, I apologize for the language.
Oh no, it's okay.
Okay.
It still says I'm not able. Do I have to raise my hand first?
No, you can speak now.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. All right. All right.
Note to staff: they're going to have to edit this, or YouTube will take down the video.
Okay.
So just try everybody not to curse, okay?
Yeah. I didn't know you could hear me. So anyhow, yeah. Let me get to this really quickly, okay? I think everybody on this call is a well-informed person with a conscience, a moral conscience. So I don't think I have to explain the details. Donna said it at the beginning of the call. People are starving in Gaza right now deliberately because Israel is stopping the aid from getting into Gaza, both medical aid, but of course, food. It's been stopped for a couple months now. People are starving. It's the humanitarian issue of our time, and PDA must absolutely act on this issue. So there's legislation in the House and the Senate. There's sign-on letters in the House and the Senate, specifically in the Senate. It's Senate Resolution 224, calling for the urgent delivery of humanitarian aid to address the needs of civilians in Gaza. We would like to see every member of the Senate sign on to this resolution. Only 28 Democrats have signed on so far. We would like to see PDA send out a email, an e-blast to all of its members asking all of its members, to call members of the Senate, to call their senators and ask them to sign on to resolution 224. So that's one thing we'd like them to do. We'd like PDA to issue a press release. I don't know who reads PDA press releases, but we think we're important enough that we should issue a press release. And secondly, to the extent that we still have drop letters going on in Congress, people are still dropping off letters. I understand we want this to be included in the next letter that's dropped off in Congress, that people, that the senators sign on to resolution 224, but also in the House that they speak out. Now, there was already a sign-on letter that went around in the House. There was some 94 Democrats who signed on to this letter saying that the border should be opened. That letter has been sent in, but still, even if people did not sign that letter, they can still speak out on this issue, right? They can still hold press conferences. They can still speak publicly on this issue. So we would like PDA, that PDA letter drop to ask every member of the Senate, every member of the House to speak out publicly on this issue, to have that border opened to stop the deliberate starvation that is already going on. So one thing that came up when I was talking to Ms. Grijalva that I wanted her to talk about is what's going on with the weapons to Israel. We're sending weapons to Israel as Gaza starves. We're giving Israel political cover as Gaza starves. So we would like people to speak out about stopping the flow of arms to Israel. Alan, you went to the Jewish Voice for Peace. I'm sure that was on their agenda, stopping the flow of weapons to Israel. So these resolutions, resolution 224, the sign-on letter in Congress, they're basically letters of moral suasion. Oh, how terrible this is, how evil this is. You got to stop. It's really evil. Stop doing it. But we're not using our leverage. Our leverage is the armaments we're sending to Israel, the military aid we're sending to Israel, our political cover we're giving to Israel. We have to talk about that issue too. Otherwise, we go nowhere with this. They're not listening to their conscience, and Netanyahu doesn't listen to his conscience if he has one. We have to use our leverage, which is the aid and the military weapons we're sending them. And we want that letter that goes to all of our members from PDA to talk about stopping the arms from flowing to Israel, as well as opening the border. So what do you think, Alan, about these tasks that we're asking you to do?
I think you guys should draft a letter, send it to me. We'll get something out by Wednesday. On Monday and Tuesday, I think we're going to be blitzing around College for All because we have a hard deadline of Wednesday. And so let's on Wednesday, you guys draft something up from your committee, and we'll get something out by Wednesday. Of course, we'll determine the final language if it's from PDA. Yeah.
Will you send an email blast to all PDA members?
That's the idea. That's the idea, yes.
We have two things we have to write. The email blast, we'll give you a draft of that, and we'll give you a draft of language for the letter drop. Is that correct?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
The more drafts you send me, the happier I am, the less initial writing I have to do.
I would like Stephen Spitz to say something. He was on our call on Saturday.
Okay, but we are trying to save time here. Of course, go ahead, Stephen.
Just take a second.
Before
He's a
Stephen
brilliant person.
Alan,
Okay, but Jim, thank you. I've agreed to what you guys are going to do, but Stephen has the last word here. Then Dan for a second, but we got to get to Donna and Donna's guest. Stephen, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. I looked at the list of the senators on the resolution to start up the humanitarian aid. And fortunately, I live in Virginia. Both Virginia senators, who are more conservative than a lot of the Democrats, have signed on. But you folks in California, this includes you, Ellen, neither of the Democratic senators are on.
Yeah, well, of course, Kane has a history of being good on a little better on some war and peace and humanitarian issues than most U.S. senators. So that's maybe not that surprising, but also good to see. Yeah, disturbing. Not so surprising with Adam Schiff. A little bit more disappointing with Padilla. But yes, we'll work on it. We'll work on it everywhere. So please, I look for the drafts. I hope the IoT can draft some good, clear language so that I don't have to do a lot of recomposing, and we'll get them out by Wednesday. Try to get me those by end of business tomorrow. We don't want any further delays on this. And again, but on Monday and Tuesday, we're going to be reminding all PDA members to contact their members of Congress and their senators to support the College for All. And then we're going to go over to this issue about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, the need to end the blockade of food. And again, as per weapons and everything is how you compose it, guys, send it to me and we'll go forward. So thank you, Jim. Thank you, Stephen. Dan, you have the final word.
I just wanted to say to everybody, thank you, Alan. And thank you, Jim. All of the issues that Jim were talking about, PDA already supports
Right.
in the direction of we need to act and do things that will try to stop the genocide and the humanitarian crisis. So we're already on board on all those things, and nothing you said, Jim, is out of the realm of it. We can do it. We can. So send it to Alan, and also send it to me. Maybe I can help Alan and put a little bit of.
Oh yes, please send it to Dan too. More.
Yeah, send a little bit of the work because Alan's really
yeah,
overwhelmed.
and just no swear words, Jim. No swear words.
No swear words.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Look, everybody. But as I go over to Donna, she's going to introduce Julie, and Julie's been very patient with her time. But look, I didn't actually intend to make a political statement today as I went to the Hollywood market because I was looking for the strongest garlic I could find, and I just had a green sweatshirt over this, and I took it off, and I had the shirt on, and it says Democratic majority for Palestine. And by the way, folks, I don't know if you know this because one of the shames of the American sort of media institutional apparatus of American mainstream media is they don't do a lot of polling on Israel and Gaza. Well, if you look at the polling that does exist at this hour, the American public is appalled and clearly does not support the policies the United States government is continuing to maintain in relationship to Israel, Palestine, Israel, and Gaza. And so about 10 to 12 people, literally, I made no contact with them, and they made clear to me that they really appreciated my t-shirt at the Hollywood market today. So look, we have the people with us on this. And with that, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, Stephen. And Donna Smith, the floor is yours. And thank you, Julie, for your graciousness and your patience.
Thank you very much, Alan. And thank you to the End Wars and Occupations team for stepping up on this issue, because I think all of us are really, any thinking person, any feeling person is appalled by what's going on there. So thank you so much to that team for working on that. Next, could we have someone, I'll ask Julie to unmute. I just asked her to. So hopefully.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, we can. You are the most patient woman in history. Thank you. I want everybody to know that Julie Hampton-Lyon is one of my guests on this current episode of Positively Progressive, which just dropped today. And I wanted everybody to get a feel for what Julie and I have been talking about a little bit too. And we are horrified by the potential cuts to Medicaid, to SNAP benefits, and so forth. Julie is a very accomplished dietitian and nutritionist. If you think about it, check out her website, The Hungry Wyomingite. It's really got a lot of good information. Julie, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And you're sitting in Laramie, Wyoming right now, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And I understood earlier today, you might have started filling out, perhaps thinking about a chapter for PDA in Laramie, Wyoming, right?
Yes, I submitted paperwork or the form to be a volunteer. Yes. So I'd love to have a PDA chapter in Wyoming. There's wonderful. Already a lot of movement. And I think there's a lot of people that are itching to do something. And there's not a lot of direction, I guess. So
yeah, I think that's probably true in many of our smaller populated states where people, they really want to be doing things and don't really have the mode to get it done, to get going.
Well, I think about rural America. Wyoming is 9th, 10th largest state in the country, and we have under 700,000 people in the entire state. Some of our towns have 10 people in them. So,
yeah, that's small. I used to think Torrington was small on the eastern side of your state. By the way, folks, Wyoming is a beautiful state. There's so much to see. I think my first political feelings about Wyoming, not my first, but some of them came from the Matthew Shepard. Many of you will remember that horror story that happened in Wyoming with a young gay man who was killed, and it was just gruesome, awful, terrible. And we always hoped that Wyoming would mature into a state that would recognize the value of all human beings. And now we see these terrible cuts potentially coming through in this budget. Julie, what do you think these cuts would potentially do to rural America, the Medicaid cuts?
So I actually talked about this a little bit on my recent Substack because I did have a family member in the hospital most recently. The cuts to Medicaid, Medicare services would be devastating for a rural state like Wyoming. A lot of our hospitals and like outpatient services, we think of, registered dietitians for diabetes, physical therapists, occupational therapists, the list goes on and on. We rely on Medicaid services as payment to be reimbursed for those things that people wouldn't be able to afford otherwise. So, and one of the things that popped into my head as I was thinking about this as well is that because we are such a rural state and we have significant portions of roads closed because of wind or light snow or etc. across the state throughout the year, telehealth services that have become so vital since the pandemic have really been making strides in making people have affordable and like immediate access to healthcare. If we cancel some of those Medicaid, Medicare payments and services, those telehealth services are also at risk.
Wow. And I think for those who don't know a lot about Wyoming, the winter is can be especially challenging. Yellowstone sits up in the northwestern part of Wyoming, and that some of the most beautiful places in this country are also the most isolated in the wintertime. And you have kids and families. What happens, for instance, to nutrition programs for moms and kids? And talk about SNAP. You know a lot about SNAP benefits. Talk about what happens.
Yeah, so actually the most recent budget that came out is going to make very significant cuts to SNAP and SNAP-Ed. SNAP-Ed is dear to my heart because I used to work for them here in the state of Wyoming. I actually, worked on creating programs that would teach new mothers how to care for their infants, how to safely eat during pregnancy. A lot of those necessary like nutrition classes that you don't think about on an everyday basis, but when you need access to them, we have some of those offerings, right? And they've just told us that their funding will run out at the end of this fiscal year if they can't get any support from Congress. So,
and how damaging is that, do you think, to infant and maternal mortality in rural communities?
So
I know it's a tough
that's a tough question, right? Education is often paired with action, support from doctors, nurses, you need a whole host of people during pregnancy to help support you, right? But if you don't have access to those services, it could be deadly. So
yeah, not exactly a great respect for life, is it? Not exactly a pro-life position, I don't think.
No, not at all.
Doesn't jive. Tell me, you've been to some protests recently in Laramie. Are you seeing a lot of the college, because the University of Wyoming is based in Laramie? Are you seeing a lot of the young people come out?
So I have been to several protests. There are quite a few college students that have come to give support, but a lot of the people that are coming out in Wyoming aren't just young college kids. They're middle-aged. There's a significant number of people that are like myself, who are in their 30s with kids. I've seen a lot of disabled individuals, and a lot of older adults. And many of those older adults aren't just Democratic, they're independents, they're Republicans who are also tired of, what feels like years of protests, and they're angry. They're scared of their benefits going away. They're scared. They may have, parents that need hospice care, and they're afraid that, hospice may be cut because of Medicaid cuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's a frightening time, and I think what you're touching on is interesting, because Wyoming always, at least in the last few cycles, has been overwhelmingly red, overwhelmingly Republican. And I think what you're describing is some buyer's remorse, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There were a significant number of people in Wyoming that didn't even vote.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna help wake them up, right, Julie? We're gonna do what we can to wake these people up. And then I want to close our segment a little bit, and I haven't talked about this with you before. You're becoming a whole lot more engaged politically, I think. When you look at your two beautiful little twin boys, who will be just 4 very soon, why do you fight on? What do you see for them? What do you see?
I want a better future for them. I want them to grow up in a state where we don't have to be afraid of, talking about gender or pronouns lest we get our tires slashed, because that's happened here recently. I want to talk about, I want them to be free to express themselves as they see fit. I want, there's a lot of reasons. I want them to be able to grow up without worrying about, water conservation, a lot of things. And I know this is kind of a raw answer, but I want them to be able to do whatever they feel happiest about, rather than what I feel a lot of my relatives have been stuck in a cycle of doing, of going towards a career that makes them the most money in order to survive.
Thank you, Julie. I will think that too for those beautiful little twins. I mean, I think if all of us think more about the children in our universe, and what we hope to leave for them, it's one of the things that frightens me, is that I want to see my children and their children have the opportunity, as you said, to follow whatever dream, whatever path it is that they feel is good, instead of chasing the almighty dollar and making sure that, we all have to survive in this world, but doing things that, what's the old saying, and do a job that you love and you'll never work a day in your life, something like that. But I think there's also, for mothers and fathers, I think a more broad a more broad view that we don't want to leave this mess to our kids. We want to leave them a slate where they can get going on making this world better, even better, and even more open and even more free. And that includes the kids in Gaza. It includes the kids in Laramie, Wyoming. It includes the kids in Flint, Michigan. It includes the kids in Guadalajara, Mexico. It includes all the kids in the world, right?
Yes.
Agreed.
We've
Well,
got to
thanks
stop
for-
having concepts of a plan. We need actual plans and strategies.
Excellent. Thank you, Julie. And I know we'll be talking more about PDA in Wyoming. And thank you, Alan. Julie is a wonderful young woman. I hope we'll see her for many, many months.
No, thank you. And I hope you guys continue your dialogues on Positively Progressive. And Julie, I just had one question for you, which is that they're attacking the post office. And right now the post office, which is pretty much one of the first initial acts of the U.S. government and is guaranteed by law from the beginning of our constitutional republic, is in real danger. How sorely will it be missed in a state so sparsely populated as Wyoming?
Oh, she's muted.
Oh, she got muted?
Yeah,
Oh, how did that happen?
who knows?
I doubt she'll be cursing like Jim. Sorry, Jim.
Oh, Julie won't do that.
No, I saved that for off camera.
Okay, good.
Okay, good.
Oh, we should. Oh, I wish we could have Julie on camera. I'm so sorry. We could have done that. We could have made you co-host.
You're fine. Can you repeat the question about
Just the things they're cutting, right? So many of the things they're cutting, the Trump administration, are going to have an overly heavy impact on rural communities and a state like Wyoming, which has the lowest population of any state in the country, I think. It's either that or Vermont. And it's much larger than Vermont. And so the post office is under attack. And if the post office goes away, I mean, the services provided to Wyoming would seemingly be hurt more than anything. Has that come up much in Wyoming?
Actually, yes. So the last time Hageman was in Laramie, when I went, and those clips are already viral of a lot of her responses. One of the few things that the crowd and I seem to agree with her was that we need to preserve the post office in the United States. There's not very many things that I agree with Hageman on, but I do agree with that, that we need to keep at least the main distribution centers in Wyoming. Right now, there's a threat when they're talking about cuts and conservation of taking the distribution center that's out of Cheyenne and moving it all the way to Denver. So it already takes a day for Laramie mail to get distributed, just because it already has to go to Cheyenne and then it has to go back. And so now what they're proposing is that it would go all the way to Denver before going back to Cheyenne and then going back to the rest of the state. So like we only really have one main center that distributes mail, and I don't want, like many things in rural America, I don't want that to get lost. If they lose the UPS, USPS services, there's a lot of communities that would be left in the dust, because FedEx and some of the more private processors, they don't deliver to out of priority areas. So I'm thinking of my family that lives on a farm, half an hour away from any town. They could get packages right now with USPS, but if that goes away, it could be days before they would get the packages and stuff that they need, because they'd have to go into town to be able to get everything that they need. So
yeah, I totally do that too, Alan. I for a short time lived in South Dakota, And, you know, if we had a bad snowstorm and, for instance, paychecks were due or something else was due, it could be a very serious problem very quickly if you just because of the weather conditions didn't get mail. So
Well,
yeah.
that compounds because, you know, a significant amount of us have internet access now, but there is still a 10-15% of Wyoming that still doesn't have internet, like
Wow.
broadband access.
Wow. And I saw somebody in the chat, Julie, talking about they're from Alaska and they have less than 750,000 people there. You know, Alan, I was thinking about Harvey J.K. and your work with him about, you know, the Bill of Rights for rural America. I think we need to lean pretty heavy into that again very soon.
Yes. Well, I just put into the chat actually, and I'd love for if Julie has the time. It's not the shortest document in the world. It's true that the Economic Bill of Rights mentions universal broadband, but also the Rural New Deal proposal by PDA and Rural Urban Bridge Institute co-authored, which I just put the link into the chat for, really goes into a whole bunch of rural policies. And, you know, so much of it, you know, Anthony is a farmer in the western part of Virginia, not West Virginia, but Western Virginia. And of course, a lot of it relates to the kind of agriculture that's done in, you know, Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska, but also would pertain to the kind of farming that's done in Wyoming, and also very much pertain to life in small town and rural Wyoming as well. Yeah, I'd love to, if ever you have time to review it, Julie, to hear your thoughts on our proposal for a Rural New Deal for the 21st century.
Yeah, I also have several people that I could send it out to as well, who might be a little bit better versed in like farming specifics and, you know, some other things. I'm thinking of the Wyoming Food Coalition and some of the other things. So
yeah, well, please, thank you. And by the way, we'd love to have a Laramie chapter. That would be so incredible. And you know, look, one of the overarching ideas behind the Rural New Deal is, you know, rural and small town America. You know, it's not a state; it's a region. It's a vast geographic expanse of the country, and it's almost all represented by one party, the Republican Party, and the mainstream of the Democratic Party, not the progressive wing at all, but the mainstream has all but abandoned it. And certainly from the brain trust of the Chuck Schumers of the party and people like that. The sense of how things are going in rural and small town America, I think by all the polling, is that it's not going that well. The population isn't satisfied with the direction of the country and the direction of how their lives are going. They'd want to see major improvements and major changes. And so that's what informs a Rural New Deal, is to try to offer up a third formation, a progressive formation's view of how maybe we could organize things differently. So that's the thing behind it. And yeah, I hope you can share that with people, and I'd love to get your feedback and your associates' feedback. And Donna and Julie, thank you so much for a great conversation.
You're welcome. And everybody tune in to Positively Progressive and share it with your friends and reach out to Julie through the Hungry Wyomingite.
Yeah, I love that too.
I love it too.
And also, I'm sure life in Wyoming must be great too. So, you know.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful up there. Really pretty.
Yeah. No, I
right now where there's another thunderstorm rolling in. So
exciting.
Tornado warnings.
Yeah. Well, thank you to both
Alan.
of you. Thank you. And look, thank you to everybody for today's PDA Town Hall. Of course, I want to thank Julie Hampton-Lyon. I want to thank Donna Smith. I want to thank Dan O'Neill, Jim Carpenter, Mike Fox, and most especially want to thank Adelita Grijalva. And I can't really say that last name without also a final thought for the brilliance of Congressman Grijalva. You know, I did have some experiences with him also as executive director. And one time, Donna, I was walking the hallways of the offices of Congress, and there was Raul Grijalva. And it was the first time I'd actually met him face to face as ED. And I told him, you know, who I was and what my job was. And he just came up and gave me the hugest hug.
I know. He was a good hugger. Uh-oh, Alan froze.
I'm going to give 5 more seconds for him to finish his thought. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, we will call this a wrap for the recording then, gang. Everybody stick around for family time here. We're going to be discussing where we're at on our goals. Everybody on the recording, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, each and every Sunday. Y'all come back and see us.